a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes, where we're changing the world. Wait for it. One Om at a time. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show this week, as we normally do around this Thursday of the month, that being the third Thursday of the month, we are going to be diving into the stars. We're going to be flirting with the moon, we're going to be riding the sun, and we're going to see which of the stars are out there pinging us these days. Here on Planetary Influences, with the Dr. Kevin Show astrologer, Rob Stewart. I have the papers to prove he belongs to me. Now, you can find more about Rob Stewart at innercenter.org. That's innercenter.org. So once a month, Rob comes in, tells us what's coming up. As always, I want to remind you, this tells you what the energies are in the air. Your chart is going to tell you where those energies are most likely to hit you in what area of your life, personal, business, internal, external. There's 12 areas of your life, just like there are 12 houses in the zodiac. If you know your chart, it's a good time to pull it out. And as Rob fills us in on what's going on in the stars, you can kind of see, well, where is this most likely to benefit me, challenge me, give me an opportunity for growth. If you don't have your chart or don't understand enough about your chart astrologically, contact Rob at innercenter.org. Get a chart reading, and then you can come back once a month and listen as Rob talks about what's going on, and you will have a reference point that can help you, empower you, and give you more information with which to make better decisions. That's what it's all about. We're here to empower you, inform you, and help you make your best decisions with what the energies are going on in the universe as one of those factors. Again, that's Rob Stewart at innercenter.org. Now, also, if you catch us live, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this third Thursday, you can do so. You can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. And by calling in, you can ask your questions of Rob or myself. So, Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm enjoying, I'm loving, I'm trying to wrap my fingers around this spring weather and say, no, you cannot leave. Do not send winter back.
Yeah, this time of year, I love this time of year. You know, the springtime, the days are longer. We're about to enter a new astrological year with the sun in Aries. And it's always, it's springtime just brings new life and new possibilities. And it's a time of year I really like.
Yeah, I mean, we could still get a snowstorm. I mean, we're in the northern hemisphere. We're in New England. You and I are north of Boston, so our listeners are all over the world. So they're going, why do we care? So, but hey, tough. So we could get another snowstorm. We could get a full-blown blizzard, 12, 18, 24 inches. But the likelihood is it would be gone in a few days because we've just passed that corner. It's not like at the beginning where you have 3 inches of snow and the damn things don't melt until the next 3 inches come, and then you have 6. And then when the 18 inches come, you're like, oh, just shoot me now. So,
yep, that's the Northeast. Yep.
Yeah. I can take a 6-inch snowstorm as long as it's not on top of the 8 inches that's already on the ground that won't melt. It's the little things. But we are in spring. We are coming into the time of Aries. And I'm sure there's something going on in the stars. Or did they all like take the week off? Are they all on vacation for the month? Are they like
Nope.
in Tahiti?
No, they're all up there, and they're doing their thing. And as you mentioned before in the show, we talk about the astrological energies, and basically it really is much like a weather forecast in the sense that there's many perspectives of astrology, but I see it as a sort of a clock on a wall that speaks to general themes and energies to learn and grow through in our life, and it all sort of reflects upon our own chart in a different, unique way, just as we're all sort of different prisms, so to speak, here walking through the journey of life. So there's all these different themes that are playing out, and by swimming with the flow of life in sort of the most empowered, wise, compassionate way, to me, that's what astrology can really help in doing. So that's what we're talking about today and every third Thursday. So thanks for having me on again, Dr. Kevin. I always enjoy this.
As always. And, when you're swimming in the flow of life, there are different strokes, breaststroke, backstroke, Australian crawl, that each one is most appropriate depending on which way the flow is going. And sometimes you just have to know when the only choice is dog paddling. That said, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, so the first thing, we have a full moon tomorrow. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, Dr. Kevin. Tomorrow is the 18th.
Top of the morning to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Thank you for reminding me. I almost forgot me brogue. Go ahead.
Right. So, tomorrow's the 18th, not St. Patty's Day tomorrow, but there's a full moon in Virgo tomorrow. And full moons are a time of fruition. It's a time of letting go of what isn't working and embracing what is working. And it's a time to let go and, continue on with what is working and cut away what isn't. And the full moon in Virgo, it's about, looking at places in our life where we're organized, places where we're not. Virgo is about discerning, it's about analyzing, it's about being very practical in your daily life. And, daily life is a really key theme in Virgo because it's sort of where the nose hits the grindstone. It's, day in, day out. Are you making your list? Are you checking them off? Are you, in what ways are you being useful? Not only for yourself, but for others, being a humble team player, being able to look at yourself and analyze what do I need to improve here that can be improved. And the thing with Virgo is that it can be very, the energy of Virgo can be very perfectionistic and this sort of holding oneself to a super, super high standard. So if you feel hyper self-critical around, this full moon, which we're pretty much in right now, be gentle with yourself and just make a list of the things you can do. It's a time to practice discernment as well. Particularly because the sun is very close to Neptune. It's within 4 degrees of Neptune. And with the moon opposite the sun conjoining Neptune, we have the opportunities to sort of, Neptune is a higher octave of Venus. So it's a very romantic, very dreamy energy, but it's also the type of energy where you can sort of see what you want to see instead of the entirety of reality itself. So it's a time to be discerning, feet on the ground, enjoying those higher octaves of life, but also being realistic and remaining grounded. So this is part of the full moon energy that we're moving through effectively now, but it's exact tomorrow. And do you want to add anything or unpack any of that stuff, Dr. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that occurs to me, and I don't know, I mean, you and I have shared a full moon in Virgo moment in the past, because this is your second year, and there was a full moon in Virgo last year. But one of the things that comes to me is when there was the Virgo in the new moon, which is what this ties back to, you know. Yeah. If there were health issues you were avoiding, putting down, swallowing, saying, oh, I can just live with it, it can get better, this would be a time when they could pop out and go, bad choice. And I don't hear that, you know, I mean, obviously it's not the only configuration, but when I do think of Virgo, I do think that of a full moon in Virgo, I do think that sometimes that's where something in the health family can show up and give us the reality of a situation we were avoiding. And having an Aries sun kissing up to Neptune in an opposition to it, I think it's even more likely now that if something pops up and you go, it hasn't bothered me for months, or I've kind of learned to live with it, but it shows up now, this could be a real warning shot across the bow of, you really need to take care of it now or you're going to regret it. Does that make sense when I say that?
Well, I mean, health, daily routine, those all are Virgo qualities. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, obviously, consult with your doctor if there's anything going on that requires that. You know, I agree. You make a good point. And, you know, but with any of these energies, they do show up in a myriad of different ways. One of which is health. So it's a very valid point. But again, consult with your doctor on all health things, of course. But that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, this is an absolute don't blow off consulting with your doctor message here. I mean, I just feel like the next 2 or 3 days that you could have something, you become more aware, or it's harder to ignore, or it's come back, and with that opposition to Neptune, which, could easily be lots of stuff going out in the world that you feel is kind of supporting your illusion that nothing's wrong when there are clear signs that there is something not right. And, Rob, you and I both know, not right doesn't always mean wrong. They're not like opposites, those two sentences. But if something's not right, and that's why I'm actually encouraging people, go to your health practitioner if something's a little up, if something's bothering you, if something that you keep on thinking is go away, or is kind of not flared up, but suddenly flares up. And it definitely could be something that occurred when that new moon was in Virgo. Now, this is what, at the beginning of the show, depending on what house is ruled by Virgo in your chart, could tell you whether it's more or less likely that it is the health phase of Virgo. And that's part of what people don't understand. And this is why people sometimes are skeptical or try to discount it, because I'm specifically very drawn, and I'm going to put it this way, intuitively, that I needed to mention this. So somebody out there listening needs to hear it. I don't know who. Maybe more than one somebody. But this is the power of, a Virgo full moon in your second house is going to look very different than a Virgo full moon if it's crossing over your sixth house. versus if it's crossing over your ninth house. And, again, that's the layered part why people who don't really understand astrology can easily be skeptical of it, because part of that skepticism is ignorance. And I'm not saying that in a hostile way. It's really, they think astrology is your horoscope, the horoscope in your daily app. And, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. The placements in which these transits are occurring in your natal chart really do speak to, in much greater detail, of how these themes can show up in life and ways of navigating them and aligning yourself with the sort of what I consider the natural flow of life. So yeah, the way these transits relate and translate to your birth chart really do speak to more of these themes and give hints as to ways of navigating things astrologically. And so right after this full moon, we have, as you mentioned, the sun is moving into Aries, Dr. Kevin. And this is really the beginning of the astrological new year. We celebrate the calendar new year on January 1st, which is a very arbitrary time with regards to the seasons, with regards to the natural cycles of the year. And on March 20th, the sun enters the sign of Aries, and it's the new astrological year. Aries is, the sort of, there's many archetypes of Aries, but oftentimes I see it as, a birth. Giving birth or being born. The child out of the womb is a bit scared, is a bit anxious, is a bit, the womb is so comfortable and safe and warm, and the being born is a bit scary, and you're sort of on your own a bit, but it's exciting, it's new, it's fresh, it's independent, it requires bravery. These are all Aries archetypes, and so from March 20th through the next month, it's a time to sort of boldly and courageously assert yourself and get the ball rolling. It's a new beginning. It's when life begins sprouting again here after the winter. And it's a new cycle of energy, a new beginning. And, it's time of being daring, decisive. And it's also sort of a reminder that one can be nervous and courageous at the same time. Those are both Aries energies in a way. It's like we only become courageous once we've been nervous, right? Otherwise, there's no reason to be courageous. There's no reason to be bold. If there isn't a little nervousness that helps it spring forth. So, it's a time to take leadership, assert yourself, and get the ball rolling in all areas of your life. And it's, new beginnings ahead.
And again, it's up. And we'll be right back for the next segment of the Dr. Kevin Show with Rob Stewart from InnerCenter.org as we go through the planetary influences of March to April.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So, if you're the kind of forward thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. This is the week we do Planetary Influences with Rob Stewart of Inner Center. That's Inner, I-N-N-E-R, innercenter.org, where he shares what's going on in the skies, what's going on that is influencing us down, us little peons walking on the earth. One of the things as you were talking about Aries and the Aries energy, and the sun is in Aries, and I loved how you talked about, that there is a nervousness, but also this bold courageous. But I keep on hearing the term echolalia. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
So, echolalia, and I could be pronouncing it wrong because I've been known to pronounce things wrong, but it's the sound that a little kid makes, and they'll make it, and they'll make the sound, and then they'll stop for a second, and then they'll laugh. And they're hearing the echo, and they're figuring out kind of what this sound coming out of them, like what their experience of this sound is. And it's a phase. But when you talked about like the child coming out of the womb, the Aries, and again, the sun is one part of a much larger, more complex, diverse chart and stuff like this. But the Aries energy oftentimes can be very chatty or very verbal, or they're building some of their courage through their need to talk about it. And, and it's a fire sign. And so it's trying to feed that fire. So, when you first light a fire, it's very at risk at going out. The flame really has to catch. And then you have to really give it fuel if you want it like solid in a really good fire, which would move us into Leo, and that's a few months away. We'll get there. But I look at it, there's that tentativeness of the first spark, the light of the match that touches the candle. And that's part of that Aries energy. And I think of the echolalia of they talk themselves into the courageous. They put out into the world to experience it back, to embolden them to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. A lot of concepts that were intertwined in there, I see a lot of those as also Gemini third house in terms of interacting with immediate, speaking, hearing the echo. These are some real like input output type of interactions. But the mere act of asserting oneself and taking action and being an independent body and that bravery of speaking out, those types of things are very Aryan in nature. And it's sort of, Aries is this it's sort of like a direct engagement with life. And I can see how you're bringing the communication in there, because oftentimes that is a big way of asserting ourselves this time and age. We're not cave men and women that well, I hope not. Sometimes I wonder, but we're not out there, with clubs and spears all the time. But there is something about asserting oneself that we really shine in when the sun is in Aries, and we're really being asked to do so. Because one of the things about the sun in astrology is I feel it's rather misunderstood. In the natal chart, the sun is really what we're being asked to do. It's in one respect, I see it as part of the sole purpose, or what we're here to bring our personal contribution and creativity into in life. And oftentimes it requires a struggle. And when the sun is transiting through these constellations, it's in Pisces, it's moving into Aries, March 20th, we're given opportunities in life to kind of try this on. It's a time to assert yourself, to begin new things, to be brave and courageous, and take leadership and steer our own ship of life, really. So all that was sort of encompassed in what you said, but I do want to, like, the speaking part does kind of, it toes the line of both Gemini and Aries as well.
Well, and as you and I know, there are certain connective energies between the fire and the air signs, and then the earth and the water signs. But I don't want to dive down too deeply into this astrological hole, but I just thought I would bring that up. That's kind of what came to me, because the brashness of the Aryan is oftentimes a way for them to build courage.
Right.
And so I think that's where I kind of, got that loop of that. So, but let's make sure we talk about everything else going on in the stars.
Yeah, and I totally do agree with you, Dr. Kevin. Oftentimes speaking is a way that we are asserting ourselves, and so I totally agree. Okay, so March 18th through the 27th, so the next 10 days or so, it's a really interesting time in terms of speaking. We're talking about speaking and communication. From March 18th through about March 27th, we'll have Mercury conjunct Neptune, conjunct Jupiter. All three of these planets will be within the same, within an orb. And this is all occurring in Pisces. When Mercury and Neptune make contacts, there's this sort of dreamy and romantic nature to information, communication, the way we think, our thinking process. And again, it can be a time where we see what we want to see, and instead of the entirety of reality itself. And it's very interesting because the United States chart is going through this similar thing. We have a Neptune, opposite Neptune transit that the United States has been going through for some time. But there's a lot of information can be a difficult thing to get a grasp on with Neptune and Mercury conjunct in the chart in the transits which we're moving through right now. So over the next 10 days or so, it's a good time to vet the information in your life, to take your time sorting through information, and it's almost like a Mercury retrograde period outside of a Mercury retrograde. You know what I mean by that, Dr. Kevin?
It shares some of the qualities because of the combining of the planets.
Right. Yeah. So it's a time to stay grounded. Can be an easy time to go off into fantasy and dream world and imagination, and that's all. There's wonderful experience through such things, but there can also be the living in your own reality outside of reality itself, which can be rather disconcerting during geopolitical times of struggle, which of course we're moving through here in this world. And so I would just imagine over these next 10 days or so, there can be I don't know. It's a time where information may not be so clear, and I think that's a good thing to remember during these periods of time.
It's so funny because as you were talking about that coming together, all I could think of was the amount of like tyrannical control over everything for the most part that the Russian people are being exposed to, who are hearing a completely a disinformation campaign about what the Ukraine-Russian thing is. And your average Russian, and I have some personal experience with this because I have a friend of mine who was living in Ukraine, got out of Ukraine 3 or 4 days before the bombing, but whose mother lives in Russia. And he was talking to me how frustrating it was because the only information his mother has been exposed to is what's on Russian TV. And they're making it all as if Russia is going in and saving the Ukraine from a tyrannical takeover.
Yeah.
And he got in a fight with his mother. He's like, I'm there. Your sister is there in Mariupol. And she could be dead right now because of the Russian bombing. No. The Ukrainians picked this fight and we're going in there to save it. Like this is,
yeah.
And he had to just stop the conversation. And I've heard that from other people too, other sources, but I have a personal like source that went through that. Like it's like the Russian version of what was going on about the election was stolen. I mean, I don't know. Is Putin stealing from Trump? Is Trump stealing from Putin? Or are they just both stealing from the same well of lie well enough, big enough, and try to control the circle enough to see how many people will buy into your Kool-Aid? But my God, the parallels are scary. So that's what I thought of when you were talking about the next 10 days. I'm like, ooh, the disinformation campaign is already huge in that part of the world.
Oh,
it's almost scary to think it's going to get worse.
Right. Well, yeah, there's no doubt about what you shared. And, you know, the thing I would say is that, there's propaganda in all countries in a way. You know, I think back to weapons of mass destruction and Iraq and, different conflicts that this country has gotten involved in that were based in propaganda and phony facts. So I think it's, I think that it's a time where I think everyone should be aware and discerning regarding information and blurred, information is so powerful because, just like the story you shared with your friend and his mom, information, these narratives can be spun in all sorts of ways. And of course, it seems to me that many wars have really sprung up, obviously, from some type of manipulation of information. And I think it's just a really good time to remember discernment, and that no country is, in my opinion, is immune of swaying public opinion consciously or unconsciously, and that's a real Neptunian thing. You think of like weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, seeing what you want to see. And of course, there were no weapons of mass destruction there, but there was great motivation to go in there, and that was sort of that was the thing that seeing what we wanted to see, so that the mission could be undertaken. But anyways, these are all Neptunian archetypes, and the point you have is a really good one. And I think over the next 10 days, it's a time where headlines and information might, I would be nice for the world to just take a real deep breath over the next 2 weeks and just chill out, or maybe the next 200 years and just chill.
Yeah, well, I'll in 200 years when we're doing this show, I'll tell you how that worked out. Okay.
Yep.
So the thing I would pass on to our listeners is I'm going to add to Rob's caution of discernment, which is gather information. Yes, gather information from lots of sources. Yes, gather information from sources that you don't necessarily trust. But just gather that information to just kind of see what everybody's saying. But don't take action that you don't have to. Don't commit or buy into or make changes that are not required. Oftentimes, these kind of titillating headlines or these, power play disinformation campaigns actually get people all riled up, and then they make some kind of decision or movement that is not necessary. And obviously, we were talking about Ukraine and Russia, but this is happening to you in your workplace. This is happening to you in your relationship. It could be happening to you in your family of birth or the family you gave birth to, or all of the above. We don't know where this plays out, so to speak, in your life. But this in your personal world means be careful, be cautious, move slow, acquire lots of information, and get into your intuitive. And if the only thing that you ask your intuitive is you get quiet and go, is there anything I need to do with this information right now? Because if you get a no, let it go. Say, I'll look at it again in April. It's not crucial. There's not a deadline. I'm not going to let somebody else create an urgency in me that is their urgency to get paid, make a commission, close a deal, win a battle, whatever, that you will then go on to regret. So it's a good time to dodge regrets. So don't move unless you have to. Get all the information you can possibly get your hands on in whatever the situation, in whatever area of your life. And then ask yourself very, very quietly, do I need to take action on this now? Or should I just wait? So that was the little piece I wanted to add. Thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, right on.
And we will be back and right after this set of commercial breaks to talk to Rob Stewart from Inner Center, and that's innercenter.org, as we finish up what's going on in the skies for this, the period of Aries, the incoming period of Aries.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you.
And you could be me.
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. This is our week where we peek into the stars with our Dr. Kevin Show astrologer, Rob Stewart from Inner Center, and that's innercenter.org. We'll look to see how are the planets influencing us and how can we best utilize, work with, and take advantage of those energies. Because they don't make your decision. They don't tell you what to do. You just have more information with which to make better decisions. So let's get our information guy, our astrological weather forecaster, back online. What else is going on, Rob?
Yeah, so, to continue the Aries theme, on March 27th, we have Mercury entering Aries. And, Mercury in Aries, it's all about direct communication. With any energy, I guess you'd say, or anything in life, there's conscious expressions of it and unconscious expressions of it, or lower sort of manifestations of that type of theme. And so a Mercury in Aries is direct, and in a conscious expression, it's very direct, it's very free from hesitation. It's assertive and instinctual. It's courageous and very independent. It's saying what is on one's mind. The unconscious expressions of Aries, Mercury in Aries, can be aggressive and can be angry, aggressive, lashing out type of thing. So again, it's a time to exercise your free communication, your free thinking, but doing so in a mindful way of not, being too assertive, I guess, with that to the point where it's not helping yourself or others, I suppose. But yeah, another unconscious expression I just wrote here, I have on my notes, is speaking first and then thinking. That's sort of like you speak first and then you think. Well, sometimes that's exactly what you need, and then other times, you end up with your foot in your mouth. So those are things to think about as we enter into April. And we do have a new moon in April on April 1st. Did you want to mention something with Mercury in Aries, Dr. Kevin, before we go to the new moon in Aries?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is it's not just, and again, where is your Mercury? And how is your Mercury either heightened, supported, given more energy by your natal Mercury, by where it is? I mean, there's all sorts of things that can either make your Mercury a superstar planet in your chart sometimes, or a planet that's almost hiding under the bed and doesn't want to be seen because it gets so beaten up when it shows up in your chart. And so with this Mercury Aries, the other thing to be careful of is wherever it is, you're going to have some passion in your communication. Your charisma will be up in that area. If you get really passionate about something, you might be more convincing, more charming, more charismatic in that area, and you may end up looking like a fool because you didn't fully think it through. You didn't fully investigate it. You got all excited about something. You repeated to 10 people this thing. It's like when you see this thing on social media and it says, oh, if you do this, then Elon Musk will put you in for a drawing for a free trip on his next rocket ship. And, and after 5,000 people jump all over you when you share it because it's a proven scam, you then kind of get sheepish about it. But it was just so exciting and you had to share it with the world. And you didn't do your due diligence. So I just want to kind of put that out there. I mean, my natal Mercury is in Leo. So this Mercury in Aries and my natal Mercury in Leo, they love each other. They're just like old baby. I mean, it's like two dragons batting their eyes at each other. Aren't you just a sexy thing? But with that power of communication becomes the responsibility of what you are communicating. So
Yeah.
that would be my addition.
Yeah, right on. And yeah, Dr. Kevin, you are a perfect example of Mercury and Leo. You know, like the eloquent and the communication style. It's a awesome thing. It's an awesome thing to witness. I've got a lot of Leo in my chart, but not Mercury. Okay, so the new moon in Aries. So this is a really interesting way. So new moons are new beginnings, of course. We're in a bigger cycle of new beginnings with the sun in Aries. But we also have a new moon in Aries. And that, it's a really interesting one because the sun and moon, Chiron and Mercury will all be very close together in this new moon, the beginning of this new moon cycle. So there's something with Chiron. Chiron is interpreted in many different ways. For me, it's about our inner child sensitivity. It's a place where we feel, where we can feel a little bit worthy of rejection, even though it may not be logical or anything like that. So really the boil of this down is that this new moon cycle is really a focus on what does it mean to assert what you think, or to say what you think, or to speak your mind, or to assert your thoughts and bring them into the world. You know, much like you were talking about earlier tonight, Dr. Kevin. This new moon is really helping us re-look at areas of our life where we feel a bit hesitant to speak out of, you know, old fears. You know, who hasn't spoken their mind and been a bit nervous of it, and it didn't go so well? They didn't hear you, or they didn't want to hear you, or they didn't, it fell on deaf ears, whatever it was. This new moon cycle there's something about looking at any of those inner sensitivities we have about, you know, can I speak this? Can I think what I'm thinking? Can I say what I want to say? Can I, you know, these are all things that will be in the spotlight, and the new lunar cycle over these next 6 months will bring opportunities to sort of relook and you know, work through those types of sensitivities we have in our life. Yeah. So does that make sense, Dr. Kevin? The other thing I just wanted to say about it real quick is that in this new moon we have Saturn and Mars squaring the north and south node, and whenever planets are squaring the north and south node, particularly on a new moon, it's bringing new opportunities to make new choices. With Saturn and Mars, it's regards to how can I be more self-responsible with how I speak or how I communicate in my life. With the North and South node in Taurus and Scorpio, this all has to do with boundaries and codependency, independency. What does it mean to have healthy boundaries with regards to my communication or the way I think about things, or you know, in those areas of life? And we're being asked to bring more maturity, more self-responsibility with healthy boundaries in those areas. Does that make sense? Do you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting because as you were talking about the new moon and in Aries, and it's there with the Chiron, and I'm going to ask you for your interpretation of something in a second. Is that it is about expressing those sensitivities. It's about protecting that child and making that child feel like they're heard, seen, respected, have voice. That this is going to be a trigger issue for you that you have a lot of energy towards. Fire, passion, you know, you're going to feel like you need to say something. But the caution here is, and that Mars-Saturn square, and we know that Mars and Aries are old buddies, is that you really do have to stop and think it through. You can't just put on replay of, if you said to somebody 1,000 times, when you say that it hurts my feelings, and they keep doing it, then you have to think of a different way to say it. You have to have a different thought process. You have to decide what is it you're missing, that in that examination. What is not being communicated, or what are you not seeing? Does that make sense, Rob?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, this little conjunction of yours is going to be going over my natal self node. So what do you think that means? Transiting my natal self node.
Yeah. So the natal self node, the way that I interpret that in the chart is based on the evolutionary astrology perspective, where the south node is our conditioning from past lives. We have the good habits in that area. We have the bad habits in that area. But we've sort of, in many lifetimes, this is the way I personally see it, that we've been conditioned through those types of themes indicated by your south node, which would be Pisces, and well, actually, no, wait, that's Aries, isn't it? Yeah, in Aries, correct? And so basically, what this would mean, if this is on your south node, is that this is bringing up some old, can be childhood, can be old themes regarding to speaking and communicating and asserting yourself, and not needing to censor yourself, and looking at those sort of inner sensitivities you have regarding that. And so there might be, there's likely, astrologically speaking, there likely might be some opportunities for you to provide more nurturing, comfort, and gentleness with that part of self that is a bit hesitant to say what he thinks and assert what he knows, or to think the way he thinks. Those types of things.
And I kind of look at this, and I don't know how many more planets you have to cover, but I mean, I kind of look at this as this is an opportunity for you to question, why am I sensitive about whatever it is that gets stirred up for you, in whatever house it's in whatever area of your life it's in, whatever it is like, and can I step away from the emotionality at it to look at it and say, do I really believe whatever the belief system is that leads to the sensitivity? Or is it something that I came in with, but came in with so I could examine it and shift it, because it came out of the south node, and the south node is always evolving towards the north node. So it's trying to get somewhere else. And so I look at this of, sometimes it's really, when I work with clients and they'll talk about why something really hurts their feelings, I keep on pushing them until they go down and they realize that whatever the belief system is that is way underneath that P in the bottom mattress, the princess and the P, that bottom P in the mattress, they look at it and they go, but that's not what I don't think that anymore, or that really isn't valid, or that's not how I see the world. And I was like, well, it's how some part of you sees the world, but you were unconscious of it. Right. And so this may be the time to see what's the P on the bottom of the mattress of the sensitivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Byron Katie's work, where you question the thoughts, the stressful thoughts that are causing, that are essentially that P at the bottom of the mattress, and so that sort of self-inquiry, meditating on these stressors, and to really question what about it, is it 100% true? anyways, it's a very interesting process, and it's something that I've been helpful in my life is Byron Katie's approach.
Yeah, I mean, I've not looked into Byron Katie to find how much that aligns up, because I mean, I've been doing that approach with people for 32 years now of that underneath. So, I mean, everything I've heard of Byron Katie's work, I like. I don't, but I've never like really looked at it, so I don't know how it compares, but it sounds like it's in the same family of kind of what I try to do with people, because sometimes the self cannot ask the question and get the clarity of answer it needs to make the shift. Sometimes the question has to come from outside of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're getting ready to end time. Was there anything else that we didn't get to?
No, I mean, that's pretty much the meat of it.
Because everything else is basically kind of in the same flow that it was in last month. So there are all a bunch of other planets out there. They're all in a mid-swing. We talked about a bunch of them last month. You can go to OMTimes archives, Dr. Kevin Show, listen to last month to see if you want to find out what's going on with, Mars and Venus and all of Mars, Venus, all the other planets, so to speak. We did mention Mars briefly. But remember, this is an ongoing thing. Rob, thanks, and I look forward for our next dance in about a month.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Dr. Kevin. It's always a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
That's Rob Stewart from InnerCenter.org here on the Dr. Kevin Show.